This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not.
AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs, two-time defending Super Bowl champions. Timmy, how do you think their season plays out?
I think we're going to see a very similar situation. I think offensively they're going to be better. But I think their division is slowly catching up talent-wise. So it's tough. I actually have them dominating their division. But I have them at 11-6, winning the division. I just think we're going to get a similar season to last year. I don't think this team has necessarily gotten better. I think they will iron some stuff out, but I think they're going to be relatively in the same ballpark as they were last year, which could be Super Bowl champions for all we know, three-peat, trifecta, greatest quarterback of all time, stuff like that.
Calm down with that. Calm down with that, Tom.
Dynasty.
Just right? Dynasty building.
Don't upset. Don't upset me.
I'll add to that because I got them at the same exact record. I got them at 11-6. I agree with everything Tim said. This team's going to be really built on defense and running the ball, I think. We saw it all last year. We talked about it all last year. I think they led the league in drops. They led the league in fumbles outside of the quarterback as well. Just all kinds of miscues, and they still won the Super Bowl. That couldn't have been more of a Patriots type season from them. Winning by defense, winning by running the ball,
reminds me
winning
of the
by
2018 run.
Similar to it.
When they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. Obviously, like the games were a little bit more like the Super Bowl is completely different, but that Patriots team was like, can they do it? Okay, they had a good game. Can they do it? They go on the road to KC and win in overtime, and then it's like, okay, that team that didn't feel like you had business in Week 13 won it all. So
For sure.
Similar.
For sure, yeah. I was completely out on that Chiefs team after that Christmas Day game. But, they actually, though they have tough games, they do have a favorable schedule. It's weird because a lot kind of hinges on that Week 1 game. I do wonder, and we'll get to this in totality, especially on Sunday, and we'll know more once we finish this AFC, but a lot hinges on them getting the 1 seed. This whole three-peat could hinge on the 1 seed. Obviously, there's never been a three-peat in NFL history, so they have a lot going against them. But as long as they can keep Travis Kelce healthy, and if they can get real camaraderie in the receiver room with Patrick Mahomes, this team should be 11 wins and could be, inching towards 12-13. Though they don't seem like a 12 or 13 win team. Again, I do at least see them getting to 11, which means they should at least, at the worst, if they had a bad season, get to 10. There's obviously no way this team's missing the playoffs unless, Mahomes gets injured. And their defense, they've got a great defense. They got a great DC. So they should be okay. The real question is, will they or won't they three-peat? And, we'll be answering that very soon.
They're my 1 seed. I have them 13-4. This year, I am big, and this is weird. I'm big on vibes this year. And it's like, I understand like there's football and everything else to it, but like the way that people are talking and coming into the offseason, the way they're preparing, and like just this, like how I've been watching more interviews on people and things, and the way Patrick Mahomes is talking, the way he's talking about last season about like, yeah, we got it done. It wasn't fun. We see a behind the back pass already in preseason. Like, I think that this year they are going to aim to just play as loose as possible. And it's going to be, and when they play loose and they play just fun, they are scary. It's when like the Warriors in 15-16, it's like when they're playing loose, Steph's dancing, they're hitting threes. It was almost unbeatable at that point. And I think you're going to see a lot of that from the Chiefs this year. They still have a top 10 defense. They still have a top 10 offensive line. They're going to have a roughly around a top 10-ish run game in totality. I think Isaiah Pacheco is a very good running back, of course. You've got massive speed there in Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown now. Juju Smith is back. You've got Travis Kelce still there. So I think overall the team is built properly around Patrick Mahomes, and I think Patrick Mahomes is coming out like, one, they're looking at this three-peat, like, let's go do something that's never been done. And two, Patrick Mahomes is coming out like, I think he's top 3 for MVP. For me, easy. Like, that's not like his lowest ceiling would be 3. is like how I feel this year.
Quick response to that. It's funny because everything you just described, Keenan, reminds me so much of the Patriots. And this is finally a team that you really can compare to the Patriots. This is the only time I've ever felt this way about a team, because you'll know this very well. The first 4 to 6 weeks for the Pats, especially depending on how their schedule lined up, it was just like, I don't even care how this team looks. Just win. Just win, get the divisional games out the way, just win, and then we'll worry about the tough games that are, in that November through January stretch. And that's kind of how I feel about this team. I don't think they're going to – you talk about them being loose, and I see what you mean. You make a very compelling case, but I think they're almost going to kind of play in the games they need to. And then if they got, like the Broncos and Raiders, those type of games this year, I think they're just going to try to get through it, work on some things. That's why I got them inching towards, 11 more so, and the 10 even, more so than 12 or 13. Granted, if everything hits, then yeah, we are looking at a 12-13 and a team who really has a chance at a 3P. And it's going to be scary if that's the case. But I do think they're going to take it easy, especially in a 17-game season. But I still, like me and Tim, we got them at 11 wins. That can conceivably be 12. 12 wins to me in a 17-win season is like a 14-win season for me in a 16-game season. So
it's scary to their schedule for the league, because
it's tough but easy at the same time.
They start off Baltimore, Cincy, Atlanta, Chargers, Saints, 49ers. So you see Baltimore, Cincy, Atlanta, and the 49ers. We'll see how good Atlanta is. And then the Chargers team that plays you tough. That is a tough stretch.
I think
and then they play Vegas, Tampa. What?
I think they split that part. I think they come out.
I think they're 4-2, 3-3 at that point. Like roughly 4-2. I think from that point on, they might run the table. And it's Vegas, it's Tampa, it's Denver. That Buffalo game's going to be really tough. But then it's Carolina, Vegas, the Chargers, Cleveland. We don't know what's going to be going on even at quarterback at that point. And then it's Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver. I think after they could go 3-3 and still get to 13-4. Like they could run the table after that. So like that's where I think they're going to get into such a groove. And Mahomes is going to be like, it's going to be, not that it's going to be exact, but it's going to be like MVP Curry, where he's just doing whatever he wants to on the field, game in, game out.
It's tough, but it's easy. I want to let Tim respond here, but that schedule you just ran through, the second half is definitely lighter, but there's still some sneaky tough wins, or excuse me.
Oh yeah, you've got to come in. You got to come to play, like against Pittsburgh and things like that. But
I think that's as easy of a schedule you can get, just because that schedule is so front loaded. That those first 6 games, that's as tough as a top 6 as you're going to get. And then you're going to sprinkle it in there towards the end. But go ahead, Tim.
Another thing about all those tough games you've listed off, almost every team has a chip on their shoulder against Patrick Mahomes. They have a reason. He literally eliminated almost all of those teams last year. The Bills, 49ers, and Ravens. He eliminated all of them from playoffs. So I think those are going to be the games that those teams.
And Joe Burrow in his last
one. When he was healthy. I think those are all teams that are going to come out and really want to win that game more than ever, and I think that's going to be really tough. I don't want to just give him the division. I think there's a good chance that they go, 5-1, 6-0 in their division, but we saw the Raiders play them really tough last year. We saw the Broncos beat them last year. It's not off the table that they don't just run the table from that point on, that they still struggle with a couple of those games, and dropping just 1 or 2 puts them right into my range at 11-6 instead of yours at 13-4. So I think it's more likely that they struggle. If they come out of that first 6 games 2-4, they're not going 13-4. There's absolutely no way. And at that point, it's just, that's it.
I think they at least split that first 6, but I think it's more likely that it's 4-2. You almost have to, they've earned that benefit of the doubt where you say, okay, 4-2, like they really are in Pat's territory in that regard. But another thing we haven't talked about, we do like the line. We do like this new receiving core. Hollywood Brown is going to be out though. Which might be negated by the fact that you do have that familiarity with Juju. That's even a Pats type move right there. Like bringing back an old receiver that might not have worked out with another team, but is more valuable to your squad. Really the thing is, what could happen here is, what if Kelsey gets injured?
That's another thing.
Oh, injury. I mean, that takes everything.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, injuries you can't plan for. Like, I couldn't plan for Rob Gronkowski to get injured with the Patriots, but like at the same time, it's like something that could happen. And Travis Kelce's injury.
No, we're talking about this all healthy, but I'm saying like this team does get in real trouble here if Kelce can't make it to, the divisional round, assuming they have a bye.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If they're playing wild card weekend, I mean, to some degree, you can make the argument they caught lightning in a bottle last year, having to go all 4 rounds, right? Because they didn't have the bye. So they kind of caught lightning in a bottle. Even winning that 49ers game, getting Dre Greenlaw injured on the sideline. I mean, we don't have to run through it, but I mean, they definitely caught some breaks, which every team does when you win a championship. I'm not saying they were lucky, but I am saying, man, to get that 2 years in a row and to be the first team to three-peat in a 17-game season, it's going to take a lot. But I do think they're going to have an outstanding chance at it, like a real chance at it. So it's going to be fascinating.
Oh yeah,
they
have like one of the real legitimate chances. Like the Broncos won 2 in a row, but John Elway retired, and like if you go through, they have one of the real legitimate chances at actually doing such a thing. Last point I'll make, and then Timmy, you could talk. Schedule wise, I think they beat Atlanta the Charge. I think they beat Atlanta Chargers in New Orleans. I was like, Tim, you can go, but I think they beat Atlanta, the Chargers, and the Saints. And then if they even go 1-2 against the Ravens, Cincinnati, and the 49ers, they're 4-2. If they go 0-3, they're still 3-3. Obviously, they could lose one of those, but I think at worst they're 3-3. If not, I think 4-2, and then from there it's lights out.
I do think
you have nothing else we can move.
I do think with the Chiefs, I think that they're gonna limit Kelce. I don't think they want him being out on the field, being the number one target. I think they've made that clear by bringing in Marquise Brown and then going to get Juju when he got hurt and drafting a wide receiver. I think they want to prioritize the wide receiver room with the targets, and they want Kelce to be healthy for that playoff run, or if they need him to push into the playoffs as a 1 seed. So I think the first 6 weeks, we're not going to see vintage Kelce. We're not going to see 100 yards and a touchdown. That's not going to be what we're getting. I think we're going to more likely see like 5 targets a game, which could still be very valuable, but I just don't think it's going to be as heavy as it has been recently. But if you want me to go.
And Tim, last thing I was going to say, the case you just made about Kelce, which again, I completely agree with, that gives credence to them starting 2-4 rather than 3-3, rather than 4-2. If they're really trying to work out the kinks in that receiver room, or if that camaraderie's not there, that very well could just cost them some games. A wrong route here, a drop pass here. So again, ultimately, I think we know they're going to be fine. But if it was ever going to be a hiccup for them, it's in that first 6 games, in that toughest part of the schedule. Again, by week 9-10. They probably do have it all figured out. Then you probably do have Kelce playing a little harder. But you're right. They're going to basically put Kelce in bubble wrap, and it's really going to be dependent on the wide receivers. And if they do have that connection, especially early, it's lookout league. But I do think there's going to be some kinks along the way. So, yeah, that was a great point.
All right, so we'll move on actually to the Las Vegas Raiders. Timmy, whenever you are ready.
I think this is going to be one of the most surprising teams this year. I have bought in to Antonio Pierce. I think he's going to be the next up-and-coming coach. It's always hard to kind of jump on the bandwagon. Every team that has a good coach had a rookie coach at some point. He was an amazing coach last year, got a lot more wins than they were expected to. I think this defense is going to be great, and I think this team is going to run the ball very successfully. I have them missing the playoffs at 9-8. I have them winning a lot more games than people think. So this is my one of my boldest teams on here. There are definitely some other bold takes in other divisions we'll have to get into in other episodes, but I think the Raiders are going to be a very solid team, and I think they got a good coach.
Okay.
I was not prepared for that personally.
I have them 6-11. I think that they've got some solid pieces. Don't love Gardner, but again, we saw Gardner take a Colts team to about 9-8 last season too, so he's definitely a worthy starting quarterback in the league, especially as a backup to kind of starter level. They just happen to have they have a tougher schedule than you would think, especially right around their bye. They see Pittsburgh, the Rams, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Miami, Denver, Kansas City, Tampa, Atlanta, Jacksonville. That's a straight stretch. Yikes. Maybe 2
I got
wins.
4.
Maybe. All right, I'm going to quickly go through this. I'll give them the Pittsburgh game. They lose to the Rams, lose to the Chiefs, lose to the Cincinnati Bengals. They're coming off a bye week. They're at Miami, though, so they lose to Miami. They beat Denver, so that's 2. Lose to Kansas City, 3. Lose to Kansas City. They split either with Tampa or Atlanta, and then they lose to Jacksonville. So I have them at 3 wins.
I think they'll beat Jacksonville.
Rob.
I think they can beat Atlanta, and I think they split with the Chiefs. I have them. That's the only Chiefs divisional loss is with the Raiders this year. That's what I think.
Me at that point in the season, it's so I think the Chiefs are going to be on.
They're gonna.
I think
they're gonna win the early one.
I truly think this is gonna. I truly think this is gonna look like a Pats classic 14-2 season where you're like, ah, man, they just look really good, and it's gonna come down to can somebody in the playoffs stop them or not. It's gonna be. We get to the AFC Championship game probably, and we'll go from there. Figure it out. So, but Raiders 6-11. I think they're solid. I think they're going to be well coached. You're going to see some good quality games out of them. They'll lose some. They have a tough schedule. I don't know much else.
I mean, I was not prepared to have an in-depth talk about the Las Vegas Raiders today. I still have trouble calling them the Las Vegas Raiders. I still want to call them either LA or Oakland, but man, I think even Keenan's being generous at 6 wins. I had a tough time getting this team to 4 wins. I think they ultimately get to 4. I would not be surprised to see this as a 3-win team. And that sounds crazy because I had the Pats at 5, really like for no reason other than hope. And this team for sure has more talent than the Pats. You got to like their defense. You got to like their offensive line. Outside of that, I mean, I'm on record. Me and Tim have had conversations back when Tim was at NVU. Right, David was working out, and me and Tim would be like, you know what? Like, I kind of like Gardner Minshew more than most people. Like, we had for sure those conversations. I do not like him in this role at all. I like him more like if he was a backup for Kansas City. I like him more in that backup role last year with the Colts. I don't think you're going to get anything good out of him this year with with Vegas. Love Antonio Pierce as a player. Loved him as an analyst on ESPN. Loved him as a coach last year, as an interim coach, and I think he's going to be a good coach moving forward. I do hope he succeeds. I genuinely like Antonio Pierce. I don't think this season's going to be it, though. You talk about vibes. I can't imagine Devontae Adams is going to be happy. I mean, you go from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr to fucking Jimmy G to now Gardner Minshew. Like, it's not going to happen.
Week 8.
Tom Brady. It might happen. It might happen. Oh shit, that would be crazy. Oh man, that got me hyped for bold predictions now. But I mean,
the playoffs.
I think it's more likely that Devontae Adams gets traded than he has, a 1,500-yard, 8 touchdown season with Gardner Minshew. I do
like Devontae though. I like his vibe this year. I told you I'm big on vibes.
The vibes are great. The vibes are always great coming out of training camp. But I mean, Antonio Pierce literally
shout out to Club Shay Shay.
Antonio Pierce literally said after I think it was their second preseason game, he said something like, "Man, I wish someone would play good at the quarterback position. We saw nothing from the quarterback position tonight," and then named Gardner Minshew the starter the next day. So you want to talk about vibes? I just don't see it. I don't see it with this team at all. I see this as a bridge year. I see Gardner Minshew getting attacked, even though they do have an offensive line. I see Gardner Minshew getting injured and us seeing some AOC. Not that AOC, Aiden O'Connell. We'll see him. I just see a mess. I see a mess all over. And it sucks because I think if they did prioritize the QB position at all, went out and got somebody other than Gardner Minshew, or even got Minshew as their backup, because O'Connell looked okay last year, but what were they really playing for? they prioritize the QB, yeah, I think they would have been a player in this position, in this division, due to the talent they have on both sides of the ball. But I don't see it. I really don't see it. I got them at 4-13, and that's being nice. That's being nice. But I mean, I can't wait to see how this progresses. I did not expect him to have this much hope.
Just to rebuttal a little bit, I'll keep it short, but
sure, yeah.
I think the Raiders right now are a better football team than the Colts were last year. Other than the running back position, I think they are better in every single position. They have a better wide receiver.
I see what you
They have two better tight ends.
Are they better coaching?
That's what I believe. I believe Antonio Pierce is going to prove that he is a better coach. I think their wide receiver too. I like Jacoby Myers. He was very good to start the season last year. I think this defense is going to be phenomenal. Max Crosby could be Defensive Player of the Year. If all these things are true, they are better than the Colts were last year, and the Colts were 9-8, right on the fringe of the playoffs. So that's my reasoning. That's my rebuttal.
But they have
better than Shane Steichen's kind of. It's a lot. Shane's been it's a lot. Okay.
I do have a question. Who is the Raiders OC?
Couldn't tell you. They're going to run the football 30 times a game. I'm telling you, they don't need an offensive coordinator when he just calls power right. Power 7.
Yes, they got Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy.
Okay.
Luke
And,
Getsy. There we go.
And who's their starting running back?
Zamir White.
Refresh my memory.
He's the one who took over for Josh Jacobs last year, and I think for the last almost month and a half of the season, he was like phenomenal. I believe he was like the RB9 in fantasy because he was just churning out 5 yards per carry for like 6 games straight. I believe in him.
It was the last 4 weeks of the season. He went 17 for 69 and a touch, 22 for $145, 20 for 71, 25 for 112.
That is.
It's the last 4 weeks.
That is good enough.
Now is where he really came in.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
I have the vision.
We'll revisit.
I like backup Minshew. I like spot starter Minshew. I do not like full-time starter Minshew. I mean, shouts to Minshew Mania. Shouts to everything that, he can provide. He's definitely a good vibes type of guy. But, I mean, you can't tell me this is an upgrade from Jimmy G. I don't see it that way. And if you're saying it's going to be run heavy, yes, I mean, that could happen. That could happen. It would have to be, a great run game on top of a great defense, on top of just expert coaching for them to get to 9-8. And then on top of that, Minshew being like a plus game manager, like a good game manager on top of being able to make good throws consistently to Jacoby, to Devontae. I don't know. I cannot wait to see how this unfolds. I think this is going to be a terrible team. I think the vibes are going to be just atrocious by the time we get to week 4 and 5. But hey, could be wrong. There's always that one team, and it could be the Raiders. So
there's like 6 or 7 new playoff teams and new good teams every year. So
and I don't even have them as a playoff team. I have them missing right at the 9.
If we don't have anything
confidence.
else, we can move on to the Denver Broncos. I hope we don't have much to talk about here, but we might. Go, Timmy.
Nope. This team is bad. This team is really, really bad. I think after this year, people are going to start calling Sean Payton a fraud, a product of Drew Brees, maybe, because
you got to wait.
Yeah, that's true. We haven't seen a lot of success without Brees, and this team is like his team. They have cut almost every player that was not drafted or signed by him. So if this team does not work, it's completely on Sean Payton at this point. And then this looks like even worse of a situation for the Denver Broncos. Get rid of the Russell Wilson. They're still paying him $100+ million these next 2 years. They also traded to get Sean Payton. So that is going to look terrible. I have them 3-14. They're barely going to win. They're barely going to compete. Bo Nix, I think we're going to see a Kenny Pickett situation where it's just not successful. This is going to be a rotating issue now for 3 years, and then we see him as a backup a future backup. Sorry, but I know there's a lot of believers in Bo Nix. I'm not one of them.
Nope. I'm 3-14, co-signing it, stamp it right there with you. I think this team is bad. They're not good. There's nothing about this team that I like other than like Sean Payton's made them into a pretty solid offensive line. That's pretty cool. That's fun. Other than that, I think they're going to be bad, and I think we'll probably see Bo Nix turn into Josh Rosen, aka first round pick, 1 year starter, turn around, get the number 1 pick, and actually get somebody. That I don't have anything else with this Bronco team.
So I have them being a 5 or 6 win team. I have them more in the vein that Keenan's got the Raiders in. Like you said, they do have a good offensive line. This is still a Sean Payton coach team. I mean,
5 or 6.
I'll get to that. We'll say 5. Well, I got the Raiders at 4, so give them 6. Give them 6. So here's my thing. I don't really know much about college quarterbacks. What I do know about Bo Nix is that he played a ton of football at a variety of different schools, different systems, and he's 24 years old. He's on the older side of the coin when it comes to quarterbacks. So he's going to be more mature. I expect him to, I don't know if he's going to be explosive or not. I know none of that. But I do think he'll be able to be competent. It does say something that Sean Payton really wanted him to be the QB. Sean Payton, if nothing else, can scheme up an offense. They don't have a ton of talent compared to last year. But again, they got to 8-9 last year, and last year was a disaster. They gave up 73 points to the Dolphins last year, and they still got to 8-9. That was even sitting Russ some games. Still got to 8-9. This defense is terrible, but it's still Sean Payton. He still can get you 6 wins. You can't say that about many coaches. I certainly have more faith in him than Antonio Pierce. Again, I want Antonio Pierce to do well, but if you're giving me Sean Payton and a kind of a ragtag team, but a quarterback with some potential, a quarterback that looks like he could have a handle on their offense, I'm going to take that over whatever the hell's going on with Las Vegas. Granted, again, Vegas certainly has more talent, but if it came down to Bo Nix or Minshew at this point, I'd probably take Bo Nix. So that's my case for them getting to 5 or 6 wins. It's not like we're talking about, a playoff team here. I have no belief in this team, but I do like their schedule a little bit more than the Raiders. So that's really where I end up with them getting 5 or 6 wins. And I think Nix is going to be okay. I think he can at least, in these games that are going to be close, because they somehow will be in close games. It's any given Sunday in the NFL. I think he's going to be able to do a little more than Gardner Minshew and whatever the hell, again, is going on in Vegas. So,
okay, we're not rebuttaling that. We're going to let that.
No rebuttal. I want to hear the rebuttal.
No, there's no rebuttal. You think they're going to be a 6-win team? I think they're going to be a 3-win team. Better. They're not going to make the play.
I think they're going to be.
They're not going to make. They're not going to make the playoff. There's nothing to talk about with this team. Let's talk about the last team in this division that's actually interesting, the Los Angeles Chargers. Timmy, what do you think about the Los Angeles Chargers season this year?
I have them 3rd in their division, also at 9-8, just missing the playoffs. I think at worst we're going to see a 7-win team here. At best, we probably see a 10-win team. I think they're going to miss the playoffs. I think they're going to run the football a lot. I don't think this is a year that they can win anything. They don't have a lot of talent on offense other than Herbert. So I do think this is a middle-of-the-pack team. I think when the definition of average, this is the definition of average. A team right on the cusp of the playoffs. They're not terrible, but they're not great. They're not. Yeah, that's my take.
So I'll bounce right off of that. I completely agree with you. I have them at 8-9. So, I have them roughly around there. I think they're going to be anywhere between a 7 and 10 win team. They don't have any elite. Unless you want to try to call Justin Herbert elite, which I don't, because I think elite's a smaller course. I think that they have no elite group. I think that they have some borderline-ish elite players, like Asante Samuel Jr. is very good. Derwin James is very good, obviously. Joey Bosa is very good. Khalil Mack, we'll see if he can rekindle what he had last year. Obviously, he's getting older. But, offensively, they've got And then they got Rashawn Slater, and Joe Alt. So like if those tackles, they can say they're elite at tackle, especially if Joe Alt can become what we think he's going to. We can say they're elite there, but otherwise, they're got a good basis. And they're like an upgraded Patriots in a sense for me. Like I want to see their team have flashes. Like I want to see them go into maybe KC and have a really close game. I want to see them maybe go on the road and have a win against a tougher opponent. I want to see Jim Harbaugh. I want to see Jim Harbaugh really put his stamp and imprint on this team, really build an identity for this team. And then next year, get a few pieces in the offseason, get a couple more weapons, see if maybe Ladd McConkey can develop whatever, get pieces, and then truly make a playoff push next year. I think this is your rebuild year to go on, and maybe they could do a Seahawks thing where in a rebuild year they can sneak into the playoffs. Maybe. But I got them 8-9.
Very much agree with what Tim said when he said their floor is 7-10, but they're probably going to veer towards 9-8, maybe even 10-7. I actually have this team at 10-7. Look, they have the second easiest schedule. They have an incredibly easy start to their season, and I get it. You don't have a lot of A-list talent on the offensive side of the ball, but what you do have is a real-life, living, breathing head coach. Not only that, an elite head coach. I don't think there is a such thing as a rebuild year when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, when it comes to either one of the Harbaugh brothers here, but specifically Jim Harbaugh. I think this becomes a playoff team. I think all these games that would be in question, these one-score games that would be fucked up by Brandon Staley, again, you're going to have a living, breathing, able-bodied head coach that's going to be able to make real-life decisions. And on top of that, you do have someone who borders on being elite. I think Justin Herbert has all the tools of being elite. There's not a throw he can't make. He's mobile. The only question you have really this year about him is, can he stay healthy, because he's coming in with plantar fasciitis. Outside of that, the easy schedule, on top of everything being more manageable, this team is going to be, like Tim said, they're going to run a lot, right? So it's going to be a simplified game.
They did get Taylor Heineke too.
Did they? They got Heineke as a backup.
They got Heineke today, so
that could factor in. That could factor in.
It's good.
But you give me the combo of an
Lets
easy
you know
schedule.
that Herbert's a little bit more, maybe a little bit more hurt than possible. Not that it's like the end of the world, but obviously going in with Easton Stick's not a great decision. So getting a better quarterback, that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, you could tell that they're a little bit questionable on the health of Justin Herbert too, like we all are. But we'll see.
Sure.
We know it's an injury that can flare up throughout the season.
Sure, exactly. It's a flare-up type of injury. So nothing, I mean, in football, nothing's guaranteed anyway, but especially with this injury. But I think you give me the combo of an easy schedule and Jim Harbaugh replacing Brandon Staley. It's like a substitute teacher to like a principal type thing. You know what I mean? Like it's night and day. I mean, Brandon Staley, we once seen him call a timeout to give the Raiders an opportunity to make a field goal to tie the game. Like, Brandon Staley should never like even touch a Madden game ever again, let alone a real football team. Like, he shouldn't be in control of the high school football team.
Be able to play Madden. Like, you should.
he should not be able to coach.
Like, you should sit down with every coach, and if you can play a game of Madden, then I could probably trust you, because then that means you know at least somewhat of of clock management down the stretch. And if I watch you play Madden and you have no clock management, unfortunately, you can't be our coach. And I'm not kidding. Like, I might implement that, because a lot of these coaches need to play Madden to get some time management.
Listen, we talk about what Antonio Pierce could be. We talk about what Sean Payton hypothetically could do with a franchise that's not in the best spot. This is a middle-of-the-pack franchise who already has a top 10 quarterback and immediately has, in my opinion, a top 5 head coach. I mean, it ain't going to be a rebuild, and even if it was a rebuild year, the schedule lends it to automatically 7 wins. They should, in my opinion,
retool.
What's up?
Retool.
No, I know what you got.
More like a retool. No, I'm just saying more retool than rebuild.
I completely feel what y'all mean.
Quarterback, coach, tackle. And so those are the 3 things you want offensively. You build around it. Defensively, you've got a corner, you've got a rusher, you've got someone. You need to get someone more in the middle, because they don't really have greatness. And Denzel Perryman's okay, but like, yeah.
And look, here's the thing. I mentioned this a couple weeks back when we were talking football. I forget what the episode was exactly, but it was our tiers list with Harbaugh. everything that we could say about the Chargers right now, we could have said about the Niners before his stint, and we didn't even feel nearly as good about their quarterback position as we do now. Alex Smith wasn't even nearly viewed how he is viewed now, as like a serviceable game, above average quarterback. You can credit a lot of the late career success that Alex Smith had from his middle career on, I should say, to his late career, to Jim Harbaugh. You you pair that with Herbert, and if he at all gets his foot right this year, if he can at all just get that foot to even 80, 85%, I mean, this is a team that really, truly could challenge for that division and give KC problems, even with this roster not having top-end talent. If they can stack up the wins early, it's going to be a lot like that Giants season we saw with, what's his name? Well, I forget his name. Brian Dable. That first year with
Brian
Daniel
Dable.
Jones, they had a very weak schedule. They had an okay defense. They didn't have anything on offense. I think this Chargers team has more on offense than what they have. They got a good offensive line, and they got, again, an elite coach, a bordering on elite quarterback.
I would take Saquon over every player on this offense. I'll tell you that. I don't think they have the
For sure,
quarterback.
but I mean, outside of Saquon, they didn't have shit. They didn't have any receivers. The line was okay, and I agree. Saquon obviously is an elite talent, but I mean, cumulatively, I would take this offense over the Giants' offense and what they had.
I have nothing else to add to that. I think we all made very good points on the Chargers. So yeah, I mean, we're splitting this up within. What's up?
Same question here though. What question do you most want answered out of this division between the Chiefs, between the Broncos and Raiders, and then the Chargers? What are you gonna have your eye on the most here?
I think I'm just looking for a team to kind of step up. I don't want to see the Chiefs just walk into a division win. Like, they could low-key win this division at like 9 wins if this division is as chalk as people think it is. They can win this division at 9 wins. I don't want that to happen. I want competitiveness. I don't care about the Broncos. I get it. They're done for already. But I want to see some competitiveness from both the Chargers and the Raiders. And I think they can do it. So
I want to see MVP Mahomes have himself a special style season, and I want to see what he pulls out, because I think that all things are on the board. I think he might do whatever he wants to. I truly think the behind-the-back pass is coming out this year, and I don't think it's going to be a small one. I think it could be a few yard behind-the-back pass. That's one. And two, the other thing would be, I want to see what Devontae Adams is, because I think that Devontae Adams could be a guy who could be a trade piece. Maybe at some point we could hear him like a disgruntled wide receiver, and maybe someone could plunge and make a big trade for him. Devontae Adams is someone that I have circled depending on how this season goes for him, because he's getting older. The one thing he doesn't have is a Super Bowl, and he wants it.
I think I've really said mine. I mean, the fact that we get to see Herbert finally, again, with a real-life head coach here, I think that's really what the division's going to hinge on here. If anybody at all can challenge KC, I mean, I wrapped it up with the Chargers saying the exact same thing. I think it's this team, and the schedule lends it to that. So, but in general, I do want to see what his development, what his decision-making looks like under Harbaugh, and just what they look like as a legit franchise now. You know, I think they got some legitimacy to them. So obviously, aside from Tim, we don't have any expectations for the Raiders or the Broncos. So for me, it would be how the Chargers can challenge.